Okay, we'll see what the copyright robots do with me having a little bit of that incredible song though by Doja Cat at the top of this. Hey, everybody, it's Bevin. Welcome to Bevin, a femme over 40 and her friends podcast. I'm your host, Bevin. I've said my name 3 times. It's time to start the show. Biscuit Reynolds is sleeping, so he's not here to co-host with me. I am doing a visual podcast episode today because I look cute. And I think every time you look cute, you should celebrate it and you should do something extra special for yourself or do a little extra content creation, whatever you want to do with your cuteness. I like to say first rule of selfies is find your light. The second rule is you can't take too many. Take as many as you need. It's the digital age. We're all Warhol now. I am literally having to pay more money to Google for my digital footprint. I pay so much for digital storage every year between all the websites I run, all the things I do, all the content I've created. I officially pay more than $1,000 just to have it be online. And you know what? I'm proud of it. I look at my work, especially the work I've created because of my Patreon page. I was going to talk about Patreon at the end of this, but I'm going to talk about it now because it came up. I was looking at my Vimeo catalog because Vimeo is a website like YouTube if you don't know about it. And you can pay for, they're like, like the plan that makes sense for the kind of creation I do, which is like at least one aerobics video a week for my on-demand membership, plus other content I create for my Patreon is all hosted on Vimeo. You can create like all your private videos, and then it's just like a library that you use for other places. So Patreon is like the gate, like how basically, I'm an artist fully supported by Patreon. It's a membership support site that allows folks like me to create content for folks like you who find value in the work we put in the world, right? I'm doing this podcast because I have a Patreon page, and this is part of like the work that is supported by that Patreon. In my Patreon, at any level of support, you can get access to my Zoom aerobics classes. I teach a class called Fat Kid Dance Party Aerobics for anyone who feels left behind by mainstream fitness. If you've ever been called too much, too fat, or felt too awkward to dance, mine is the supportive class for you. It is an explicitly fat positive space where I affirm your body and your divinity again and again while you're moving. And we also do a ton of work. We work out both our bodies and our imagination. It's an inner child healing. It is a Reiki healing. It is a connection to just your highest vibration self so you can dream the dreams that you don't feel are possible all the time, right? Like it is a playground like that. And it is so much fun. And it is dance aerobics, which I truly love from like a joyful spot in my heart. I am not a formally dance trained anything. I was a fat kid and I felt excluded and on the outside of normal my whole life. To the point where in my brain, I felt like I was totally undesirable for many, many years. It drove my mental health into the ground. I was suicidal and depressed for all of my teenage years. 100% of my teenage years, I felt that way. Up until I was 19. And when I was 19, I made the decision that I didn't want to hate myself so much anymore. That was the decision I made. And I just figured it out. I started doing dance aerobics again because I knew that helped brighten my spirits. And I just started working on how I talked about myself. And slowly but surely, I was 22 when I met my first fat person who loved themselves. Like that was the first time I was exposed to fat positivity in any regard. I always thought fat was something that was not good, right? Like, and something I should actively be trying to fix. And I have really, really worked on that. And you know what? Really love my body today. It is my tool. And I have been wanting to figure out how to help people love their bodies more. I've been blogging and podcasting for a long, long time in many different forms. And I figured out this aerobics class and I've been throwing parties and stuff like that too for people and really love bringing people together for an experience of joy. And now I realized, oh my God, I can work out with people and teach them about body liberation and how to love themselves more. How did I not know this was my life's purpose until 5 years ago? I don't know. But I don't even think when I started teaching the class, I knew it was my life's purpose. But here we are. And Patreon made the most sense for me as a solo creator to just like find a membership platform when there were folks all over the world who wanted to take aerobics. I got to teach an aerobics class last night to people from Australia and the United States at the same time. And whenever I'm hitting multiple sites in Australia, I am like feeling in my flow because I love my Aussie babes. I love people all over the world getting to be weirdos together and dance together. I love our digital age and I love getting to serve folks on Zoom. So Zoom aerobics are included at every tier of Patreon support, but the on-demand tier is really why this can be my job. So I started filming an aerobics class. It started with live classes that I was teaching in real life. I would record them and then I would upload it to my Vimeo and have that as part of my Patreon membership. And so that's been refining over time. And now the present offering is 6 classes at a time, 6 Fat Kid Dance Party taught by me, a 10-minute, a 20-minute class, 2 55-minute classes, a chair aerobics class. You can do any of the classes in a chair, but like there's a chair modeled class because a client wanted it and I thought it was a great addition. And a canna-size class, which is slower, more repetitive choreography for use with an optional cannabis experience, CBD, THC, or just be sober and slower. That's fine too. But what I really find is those 6 like kind of give people a lot of places to, based on the energy they have or what they want to get out of a movement class. In addition to that, I have bonus classes from other body positive instructors I love. And now that I'm starting to teach different types of, or do different types of Zoom, not spontaneous events, planned events, collaborations. This is the word I was searching for. So you don't have to be perfect to have a podcast. You can search and find your words. So I'm doing amazing collaborations with other teachers. I'm doing a neurographic art therapy canna-size class. This is a 2-hour experience. My friend Kendra is an amazing artist. I've had her on my podcast. I don't even remember what number it was, but you can look up Kendra Tom's Street Rat Draws on my podcast, and she and I are teaching a class together, the neurographic art therapy class. It's really, I want to do a neurographic art therapy with my pals from Fat Kid Dance Party, and then I'll teach a canna-size as part of it. So we're going to use movement as a way of centering ourselves and aligning ourselves, and then we are going to be using a specific type of drawing practice and painting practice. You could do paint or just, I've never done it. I've done it twice and I've never used paint. I just use my markers. But it's really a helpful practice and it's really fun. And the way Kendra facilitates it is so liberating and relaxing and empowering. And it's all the things I like to be. So that's on 4/20 at 5:20 p.m. Pacific. It's a 2-hour experience. The Zoom info is going to be on my Patreon feed. So if you want it, get it. Next month in May, I think it's May 25th. It's a Wednesday. I'm doing a class, a puff and paint class with my friend Mindy, who's been on this podcast twice. And Mindy, Aries Art Northwest, is facilitating a puff and paint. We'll have a middle of the session canna-size class while our canvas is dry. And the theme is a snack, and I believe it's going to be a birthday cake. It might be a donut. Right now we're voting on the Discord for Fat Kid Dance Party. But that is going to be available to patrons only. But the on-demand tier, I'm going to put recordings of both of those classes up. So it's truly on-demand. Like, I'm really starting to create another bank of stuff for that membership. And when I look at my Vimeo catalog, I see a catalog of work that I've created that I feel very, very proud of. So thinking about all of like the digital footprint I leave because I'm an artist and because I like really relate to Andy Warhol. Actually, I watched the Warhol documentary on Netflix. Highly recommend. It's the Andy Warhol Diaries. They got this cool AI robot to do Andy Warhol's voice and read sections from his diaries, which I thought was an incredible way of doing storytelling. They don't pull any punches. They call him out on a few things in this this whole documentary series. There's an amazing episode about Basquiat and their relationship, which I did not know about. So it's fascinating. There's so much more to Andy Warhol than I ever understood. And also, like, I see him as just like this wildly famous commercial artist who like had the money, but he didn't seem that happy. That was my biggest takeaway from the whole thing, is like, he does not seem like he was that happy or that he enjoyed what he had when he had it, which is not my definition of success. For me, I really want to truly enjoy my life and have fun. That's part of my definition for success. I also like to speak my mind freely. I think that's a mark of a successful life. Not having bosses allows me to speak my mind freely and just trust who I'm supposed to connect to is who I'm supposed to connect to, right? In this world where there's just so much available in the digital world, any amount of people's attention, I feel honored that people want to spend time with me. You could literally listen to anybody's podcast, and everybody and their mother has a podcast. My friend even has a podcast called Everybody and Their Mother Has a Podcast. It's with his mom. It's really cute. But you want to spend time with me. I don't take that lightly. I try to create things that have value. So digital imprint, digital landscape, how much it costs to be a creator and like have that's good information for me, right? Like, I think I can trim it a little bit more and more, just figuring out ways of doing things. But Anyway, it's just you live and you learn. The tuition for entrepreneurship is mistakes. You just have to fail until you figure it out. Albert Einstein came up with 1,000 ways to not make the light bulb until he made the light bulb. Andy Warhol created a lot. Like, he just took a ton, like, he had all these resources, right? So pre-digital age, he just had a ton of Polaroids. He'd take 20, like, he'd do a night of, like, shoots with people and take, like, 20 rolls of Polaroids and just pick whichever one he wanted to use. So really, almost his art was, like, in the discernment process and the editing. And I kind of do the same thing. Like, I just shoot a lot and figure it out. So I shot an aerobics class in the woods today. Can you tell? Do I look like I'm a little glowy? And so since I haven't been touring my class, I'll tell you this. I was just doing a membership where it was just those classes. Then I was like, oh, well, I can just film it in the woods and figure out what the lengths need to be. And the woods ones, they're so beautiful. Mwah. I do not film or record my Zoom classes because I want them to just kind of be a special place in time where we got to dance that time together. And also, I like to have eyeball to eyeball, paying attention to the person on the other side of the camera versus just the Zoom. I like to just be present in Zoom. It's okay for some things to just exist and have never been recorded too. Okay, so I wanted to talk about intuition today because I have been really working on my intuition the last, I would say, like, maybe not consciously for the last 13 years, but certainly have been working on it for the last 13 years. When I became spiritual is when I opened up to a power greater than myself that knew better than me. And I was raised by a mom who is very naturally controlling. Like, that's her personality type. I read the book last year, Wired That Way. I've talked about it a couple of times on this podcast. It changed my life. It changed how I see people. In this book, there are 4 personality types that she describes, and people just kind of fit in them. And once you learn the, like, tell signs for those personality types, you can learn to love people better in ways that they really receive it. It's, like, related to astrology. It's related to, because, like, the things about my personality type I can also see in my chart, but it's related to astrology and it's related to the 5 love languages, but it's just, like, really interesting how you can kind of understand a relationship with people better. My mom is the opposite personality type from me, and that doesn't surprise me, but the way I was raised was to be, like, very controlling, right? Like, she's a naturally controlling person, so she taught me that's how to be. And she taught me there's, like, only one right way to be, because that's a very choleric mindset. It's also, like, a mindset that I learned in Al-Anon as part of Alcoholic Family Mindset. That's very black and white thinking, right or wrong. You'll never know the shame of the alcoholic, and that comes from, like, good and bad thinking. And thinking that you're bad because of who you've been, right? Versus, I care more about who you are now and who you're becoming, right? And what your behavior now is telling me about who you're becoming. But anyway, so I was thinking about, like, our personality types and, like, how I used to try to control everything, right? And once I started realizing there's a power greater than myself, I started to release that control, even before I was conscious of actually doing that. And, like, I think the process of faith and the process of a faith walk and really letting your intuition guide you in life is a release of control, a constant release of control. I may want the outcome to be a certain way, and I may want my outcome to happen at a certain time, but you know what? That's just, you set the GPS, and the journey is just created for you. And it's a journey of becoming who you're meant to be in order to do that thing or have that thing that you're meant to have. I am constantly having to talk myself through disappointment and how I respond to disappointment. Like, I frequently wish that my circumstances were different, especially, like, in this pandemic, honestly, because I see people with means who are able to take a lot less risks than I can. I think, like, flying private is a great example. I think flying private is far less risky than flying commercial because you're just in contact with way less people and there's less pandemic possibilities of getting infected. And for me, in my value system, I do not want to be exposed to the COVID virus for many, many reasons, including I don't want to carry it from one person to another and be in a chain of infection that kills someone's child or grandma. I'm just not going to kill the abuela. You know what I mean? Like, I just, to me, that's what it feels like the right thing to do, right? So if I had more money, I feel like I could travel in a way that was in alignment with my values. I could have the right kind of mask that I want to have, but I don't have those means, right? And so thinking about, like, that disappointment that I have constantly, that I'm like, oh, I'm not where I thought I would be by now. But just releasing it and trusting that process, right? That's all just trusting intuition, trusting the process is right for me and releasing it again and again. Once again, I'm asking for the serenity. Anyway, so I just like have noticed some things about my intuition when I think back about my life. Like I started really consciously paying attention to my intuition like probably about 7 years ago. I became a Reiki healer in 2013, so about 9 years ago. And then the year after that, I really started thinking like, oh, I think I could be more psychic than I am. And I think there's something about living in New York City that's making it hard for me to be psychic. I had that awareness. I also knew that New York was making it hard for me to care for myself in the way that I knew I needed to in order to be the type of psychic I knew I needed to be. I was taking enough spiritual classes and learning enough on this path and reading enough books to understand like, yeah, there's a lot of lifestyle choices you need to make in order to be really present for your intuition. But I think no matter how chaotic things are, you can totally tap into your intuition no matter what. But I knew continuing to make behavior and lifestyle choices were going to make a difference in my life. And I didn't even understand how much of a difference. About 10 years ago was like the height of my chronic digestive disorder. I was in like daily pain, doubled over. Like I knew where every bathroom was in Manhattan because of work, you know, and like because of just needing to be able to be around and just go zip into a bathroom. It was really hard, and it took a lot of behavior changes that aligned with my body, which were in fact my intuition guiding me, because frequently my actual gut has been leading me as my intuition has been guiding me. It's all tied together. I think our body is the best vessel for our intuition. Our bodies, I've learned this from Esther Hicks. Our bodies are like a radio antenna, and that's the antenna that we use to like use our feelings, our intuition, and that's how they really communicate with us, through our feelings. And so feeling joy, that's your journey, right? That's your path. Your path is supposed to be joyful. Prince Rogers Nelson sang, feel better, feel good, feel wonderful. We do it at Fat Kid Dance Party because we need the reminder that it was a commandment from the Purple One himself, who was very tapped in. And so if we just like align ourselves with that divine path, life is going to unfold in this joyful way for us. It's specifically designed for us. Each and every one of us is a different, unique creation. And our intuition is guiding us to what we're meant to do. For my children, my greatest thing that I will teach them is how to follow their intuition, because it's their intuition. It's their journey. It's not what I want for them. What I want for them is for them to be the best them that they can be. And that's whoever they end up being, right? And like just supporting that. I might not agree with their choices, but as long as they're following their intuition, that is what I would really agree with. You know what I mean? And like, there's a lot of things my intuition tells me that are very counter to what my brain is telling me. But I do them anyway because I understand that feeling of ick, that full body ick that I got when I was applying to lawyer jobs, when I was applying to take the bar. I remember that full body ick, and I did not understand what that meant. That meant no. I feel it now, and I know that's a no. Even though there's lots of stuff my brain is like, oh, do it this way, do it this way. Nope. And so the full body ick, we don't do that anymore. I got into like $130,000 of debt that is still not paid off. I mean, not even close. With all the interest I've had in my income deferred repayment plan, it's the same balance. But I know that I'm going to pay it off in one fell swoop from work that I did that had nothing to do with law, and I feel very excited about that. Because I've been following my intuition, right? I was a lawyer. I was a practicing lawyer when my digestive disorder was at its worst, right? So the more I moved my body, and I knew like moving to LA, my ex-partner, my fiance, I made a lot of decisions in my life based on the commitment she articulated to me. And I was thinking about that today. I was like, can't we just have had a nice 6 years? You know what I mean? Like, cause that's how I see it now. I'm like, nice 6 years. You know what I mean? Like I had a great time being partnered with her most of the time. And, cause I really wasn't aware of the stuff that was really toxic until I got out of it. And I was like, oh, that was really toxic. But I've grown and matured, and now I have a different lens with which to see that experience. But I was thinking that today, like, could it have just been a 6-year thing? And I'm like, no, because I made a lot of decisions based on commitment and based on the sense of security I felt having what I thought was a lifetime partner. And I grew a lot out of that support. And I think that was really good for me because I just needed that support in that time. And I needed someone to get me to California because that is where my intuition was guiding me. Is I needed to be in California. I've also heard from my intuition and from psychics that my time in California is not done, though I do feel committed to living where I live in Washington as home base forever. I love it here. It's my healing vortex. Like if you look at it, you can take your astrological chart and put it over a map. My healing vortex is literally where my mom retired. How is that possible? I don't know. But I'm really grateful for it. I love it here. But I do see like, you know, having a spot in LA and doing stuff in LA because there's a lot of production work I want to do and dreams I have. So I got moved to California because Dara really, really, really wanted to move to LA. I never thought I'd move to LA. I thought I'd go to like Atlanta or Portland, Oregon. But LA is where we ended up. And part of what made my decision was I felt intuitively called. I felt intuitively guided to get to LA. And I also was curious how psychic I could get if I lived somewhere where I didn't share walls with someone else. That was the criteria. Because once I learned that like you're profoundly affected by the energy around you, once I learned that, I was like, oh man, I live in a box surrounded by other people in New York City where I literally hear horns honking most hours of the day. Like, it was bonkers to me to think about that. But then I was like, oh, well, if I want this outcome to be more psychic, I need to put myself in a different circumstance that I know is conducive to it. So part of that was that. I did become more psychic while I was in California. I'm really grateful to report. I set that intention, and like I moved away like 3.5 years later. I think I was there for 3.5 years, a little more than that. And it was tremendous. Like the psychic awarenesses and the intuition level up I got just in that last year in California in 2019. I was going through a lot, but part of what I was going through was bringing me closer to God and closer to my connection to God and my spiritual practice. I do a lot of behavior work every day that supports my mental health, but really doing things that support my mental and physical health, like following my body's wisdom about tummy no-nos and things like that. And reducing stress. It's had the most profound impact, by the way, on my tummy stuff. My IBS was really caused by stress and being out of alignment in my life. But following my body back to my path and my alignment has been a great joy. But it's been very frustrating because I don't have the results I want, and I'm not where I think I should be. But part of intuition is literal self-trust. And something that's been really interesting about my intuition is learning to trust the harder things that I know. I probably could have known that Dara and I were going to break up. Like, God, I remember there's a John Mayer song called Slow Dancing in a Burning Room. And in the movie Practical Magic, there's a death beetle that the woman hears, Sandra Bullock's character hears at the beginning. That's signaling that her dreamboat love husband is dying. Like she's hearing this beetle, but she doesn't want to hear it. She keeps like trying to make it go away. That's how I felt when I heard that song. I heard the death beetle. I was like, oh my God, is it over? Is this over with Dara? Is it over? And we were engaged. We were planning this like dream wedding at Dollywood. It was a very inconvenient truth. And so what I did was I didn't think about it anymore. I put it out of my mind. I had heard that song. I heard the death beetle and I put it out of my mind. She broke up with me. It felt like a blindside because I was so committed to the relationship and to like this great love that I thought we had. But really, I think Dara was a train to move me from New York to LA, now that I'm like, I have the hindsight of understanding how my intuition talks to me. Moving up to Washington, I did not expect anything about my intuition because I was just in a free fall and trying to figure out what to do. But living in the forest has helped my intuition so much because I have able to really, I think, regulate my nervous system with the forest and doing all this work to support, like all these behaviors to support my mental health and well-being have really helped me just kind of like rest in, okay, I understand what's of me and what I'm getting from elsewhere, right? Like from divine source, from flow, right? And there are certain things in my intuition that are like, I know they're coming, and there's some things that suck that I know that are coming, like could suck, but like in many ways, like kind of knowing they're on the horizon helps me prepare myself mentally and emotionally. But then there's also some really joyful stuff that I can really just sense is coming. And staying in the trust of that and really trusting myself is the area of growth I really had to do over the last 3 years the biggest. It's just learn to trust myself and learn to trust my knowing, and my intuitive guidance has always got my back, has always the highest alignment in store. And what's really cool and what's hard at the same time is like, I live someplace awesome. Like I live in a paradise, but like I'm like totally travel itchy. I love to travel. I'm literally in my dreams every night. I'm not here. I'm traveling. I'm frequently in New York City. It's so interesting. Most of the time I'm in a house or an apartment, right? I've frequently been back to my Brooklyn apartment, but it's different in my dream world. It's so interesting, right? Like I went to Paris the other day. I've been a lot of fun places. My dreams are never really fun. They're mostly stressful, but like whatever. At least I get to go somewhere. But I'm still here, and we're going on how long I've been here, right? And I keep dreaming this. I have this like COVID safe dream RV tour I want to do for Facky Dance Party this year. I don't know how it's going to happen. Like I don't know how I'm going to pay my website bill. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I don't know. But I know it's going to be okay because my intuition says it's going to be okay. My intuition told me the last couple weeks to rest and slow down, and I really have. That's why I watched that Warhol documentary. I love how like I slow down, and so what I do is I like study people who are successful and read their stories and watch their documentaries. I'm such a Capricorn in so many ways. But so then I started watching Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls on Amazon Prime because multiple friends recommended it. It is so good. It's so good, and I did not expect it to inspire me so much, but it certainly has. Like, Lizzo, I saw for the first time in 2014. She was opening for Slater-Kinney. I saw her at Terminal 5, and I fell in love. She had 25,000 followers on Instagram. I immediately became 25,001, and I watched her blow up eventually. And what's really cool is she's talked about, at least for since 2016. I remember she came through LA. I saw her in LA in a tiny club, and Big Frida showed up. That was a life memory. And you know what I wore to that thing? I wore a sparkly, glittery, cute little gown thing where I stood out from the crowd. And I want to just encourage you, if you are a flamboyant babe, do the most. Do the most, especially at a Lizzo show or something like that. You know what I mean? Do the most, because you won't regret it. You'll look cute. I wore full body sparkles to see Prince at Madison Square Garden. Do not regret it. It was really fun. Anyway, I think it adds to the memory. If you're a person who loves your outfits, it adds to the memory to know you did the most and you loved it. Because I used to be afraid to do the most, right? Many times I've had an intuition and I've just been afraid, and that's why I didn't follow it. And I look back at my life, and there are times where I felt curious. So curiosity is always my tip off for my intuition. My intuition's involved if I'm curious about something. I follow my curiosities, and that's usually my intuition prepping me for something that's going to happen in a year or two. That has happened to me so many times now. I'm like, oh, it's on and popping. It's always my curiosity. And I look back at some pivotal moments in my life where I made choices, and I know if I had followed the other path, that was my curiosity path, and that was divine knowing and possibly an outcome that would have been different. But whatever. I think we're quantum creators, and so we're all kind of creating these quantum realities, and it can all happen. But it's just good for me to know now that I didn't follow my intuition, and my only regrets are not following my intuition, because what was possible, right? So now I just do it. So now I follow my intuition. I've been getting these strong notes to just rest and chill and watch stuff, and that watching Lizzo blow up. So in 2016, I'm not sorry. I'm rambly. This is how I tell stories. I'm sure you love it. My little ADHD brain is just popping in 500 different directions, and I want to talk about everything all at once. So Lizzo, as she was glowing up, right? I'm an Instagram follower. I'm engaged. I paid attention to Lizzo. She would frequently mention and thank her team that was helping her. And I was like, oh, wouldn't that be fun to be an artist and have a team helping you? And then the show, Watch Out for the Big Girls, is Lizzo auditioning and creating a dance troupe to fill up her bigger stages, even though she's always had dancers. And we get to know her team, which I'm fascinated by, because I think Lizzo herself is a work of art, just as a personality and a brand, and obviously an artist who works very hard at what she does. But then to be supported by these other people who are creating works of art with and for Lizzo. It's incredible. Her creative director, the director of the show, is also a director of a music video within the show. So you get to know the director. It's amazing. I'm just astounded by the people Lizzo surrounds herself with. The culture of the people that work with her is very kind and supportive and intuitive. And Grace, one of her big girl dancers, who I remember from that show because she was just so fabulous, is so soothing. The way she talks, she's just someone once described me, or Jess Baker described me in her book, as a 5'7" tall hunk of rose quartz. That's how I would describe her. Is she's like a crystal. I'm just chilled out, just being around her, watching a TV show. Anyway, it's an amazing show. And what surprised me so much about it, I thought I was watching junky reality TV. It is in fact very nourishing, not catty. It's really about the creation of the art and the journey of all of the big girls. It's so good. But I am so inspired by it. I've gotten so much creative inspiration just watching it. And so how interesting that my intuition was rest, chill, and okay, watch this thing because your friends keep recommending it. And I'm watching it, and it's inspiring me and helping me get into flow, because if I'm not able to do things that I want to do, right? I'm supposed to go on a camping trip this weekend. There is no way I can. There's so many obstacles that keep coming up. And today we just started having a family emergency, which is, it's within my immediate family. I'm not at liberty to talk about it, but it's nothing that's happening to me, right? Like I'm in a support system with people who are dealing with stuff. And realizing that happened, right? And how serious, I didn't even know how serious it was this morning. Now I understand how serious it is. Like I was like, because this was just another obstacle, right? Because, anyway, I'm supposed to go camping and then I can't get my cat sitting handled, and that's at a minimum, right? Like there's so many other variables that just haven't come through. And I'm like, well, I'll know. I still really want to go. Like my heart wants to go. So like, I'll know if I'm going by Friday. But right now it doesn't look so good. Outlook does not look so good, but I'll know by Friday, right? So I just keep letting it to my intuition because my intuition has been so cloudy about it. I'm posting this on the Patreon, which is how to use your body as a pendulum to ask questions of the universe. And my body pendulum had never given me the answer it gave me about that camping trip before. And I was like, well, that sounds to me like Outlook not clear. Ask again later. And so that's what I keep doing. And it's requiring a lot of patience and a lot of trust of my intuition, because I would love to force a solution. And an old version of Bevin forced lots of solutions and created lots of suffering for herself and for others, and strain on relationships that didn't need it, because of ways in which I was controlling in a time where I think it was just my fear and my people pleasing and trying to curate how people saw me, ended up doing more damage than just taking a breath and getting grounded and really connecting to my intuition and understanding what the next right step was, from a place of complete love and appreciation, both for myself and for everyone involved, and most importantly for God, and understanding in my belief that we're here with a purpose that's unique to us, that isn't what anyone else is supposed to do. Every human being is different, and I think we're different by design. It's part of our strength as a species. And I think we each and every one of us get a unique dream or desire on our heart. And that dream is part of leveling up humanity. And I don't think that many of us have to get woken up to the full realization of our dream for this to really make a beneficial presence on the planet and change the course of how we move forward on this planet. So I hope this helped. I would highly recommend, for your reading or listening pleasure, the book There's More to Life Than This by Teresa Caputo, The Long Island Medium. That was really where I started learning how to connect and good best practices for my psychic awareness. I also teach a whole series of spiritual self-care classes about my spiritual practice. A lot of it is the behaviors I use to keep me right and tight and connected and understanding what my intuitive guidance is. I love you a lot. I'm glad you're here. I hope you'll like and subscribe and all the things, and rate and leave a nice review to encourage people to listen, and maybe share this episode with friends you think that would be helpful for, add value to. I have an email list. I would love to keep in touch. The link is in profile. And I appreciate you being here. Bye, everybody.